When we're thinking about engineering in 2024, whether it's platform engineering, whether it's standard cloud engineering, even to the data center level, things are a little bit different in terms of what we have to learn, how we have to learn it, where we're learning it versus 15 years ago versus 10 years ago versus even 5 years ago. So, in this episode, we're going to be diving into that. And then we're also going to be diving into a little bit about ourselves because Kristina and I are starting a new podcast. So, welcome to the
Ooh.
Engineering Revised podcast. My name is Michael Levan.
My name is Kristina and
And let's dive into a little bit about ourselves and then we'll jump into the actual topic. So, if you want to kick
Yeah.
us off.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, congratulations to ourselves on the first episode of this podcast. I'm very excited about it. Yeah, my name is Kristina and I'm a platform engineer in Tietoevry, and I'm living in Norway. And I'm contributing actively in the tech community in different areas. So I'm a CNCF ambassador as well, and a technical lead in technical advisory group for environmental sustainability. And yeah, I like talking about all things engineering, cloud native, green tech, you name it. So yeah, it's a pleasure being a co-host on Engineering Revised podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one question for you.
Mm.
Is the Kubernetes and sustainability piece, they of course go very well together. Would you say that that's your bag right now? Like that's the thing that you're really focused on in all aspects of community engagement?
Yeah, I do. I have recently been narrowing down more and more the different focus areas, and then I realized that I do a lot of things related to like cloud native and Kubernetes specifically in my job, but I also really care about sustainability in all contexts. And then I see like the potential here to combine what I do at work with my personal passion as well and contribute to something that makes an impact. So lately I've been diving more and more into the technicalities of how sustainability and the cloud native space Kubernetes can be combined and what we can do here and how can we make it better. So yeah, that's one of my biggest focus areas right now. So you're
Yeah,
correct.
totally makes sense. Awesome.
So what
Well,
about you, Michael?
yeah,
Tell us more. You're a very known person already in the community.
great question. Yeah. Well, what about me do I want to share today? Yeah. So my name is Michael Levan. I primarily focus around the Kubernetes and platform engineering space. Everything and anything in the realm, whether it's enterprise consulting, whether it's speaking engagements, whether it's books. I'm kicking off my fifth book here pretty shortly. Just finished up the outline and all that good stuff yesterday. Content creation, videos, podcasts, literally everything. So I dabble a bit because I get bored easily, fortunately or unfortunately. But yeah, everything in the Kubernetes and platform engineering realm.
Mm. And I guess like this, like the area of this podcast of the Engineering Revised podcast is quite broad, so it's not
Mhm.
necessarily scoped down just to Kubernetes or just to platform engineering. And I am coming from a developer background, like full stack developer background, and you're coming from the system administration background, aren't you,
Yeah,
Michael? So we have also, I believe, quite broad perspectives that we should be able to benefit from in terms of like topics we will cover and guests we will have on this on this podcast going forward. So
absolutely.
I think we can do some cool episodes together. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, one of the biggest things that we were talking about with this podcast as well is that, there are obviously a lot of podcasts out there,
mm,
but you kind of see two trends. Either see the ones that are like high level, like the news of tech or, you know what I mean? Like just like the general stuff that's kind of happening. And then you see the ones that are more focused, but they're focused on a particular area of engineering from a hands on perspective. So, really what we're trying to do with this podcast is combine those two things.
mm,
So combine the broadness of it all because the reality, and I'm sure we'll get into this, as we're going through the podcast, but the reality is whatever path you take, they all kind of end up meeting somewhere at some
Mm,
time, whether it's the dev side, whether it's the infrastructure side. If you're going the security path, you're still picking one of those things, getting really good at one of those things, or both of them, right? And then managing security later on. So regardless of where you start, it all kind of interjects in some
mm,
way, shape, or form at some point in your career. Uh, so the broadness of it is it's broad, but it's actually not. Like it's kind of both at the same time. And then the other piece of it is we want to be able to showcase that information in a way that you can actually take it and use it at work. We don't want to just fill your heads with engineering news or the latest thing or this or that. Really what we want to do is we want to be able to take what we're doing here, or take what we're doing here and moving it to whatever you're doing in your engineering realm. Again, whether it's systems administration, whether it's application development, whether it's DevOpsy stuff, platform engineering stuff, security stuff, whatever it is, we want to give you the ability to take what you learn here, put it into your job.
yeah. And like even if you look at the positions out there, let's say you would be seeking for a job in the engineering realm, and there is like a joke that has been there for a long time about this open positions, having thousands of different qualifications that are required that they're looking for, and then that is a junior position as a junior software developer, for example. And it's in a way a joke, but it is based on the true situation there, right? There are like compared to maybe 10, 15 years ago, the space has changed, like with the tech industry evolving so quickly, with new technologies coming out all the time. You have all these expectations from you to be like to stay on top of things and continuously develop and learn. And that is also what you could see in these positions. It's not necessarily that narrowly scoped anymore to just a few requirements, for example, that employers are looking for. It's often the nice to have points that can give you, this additional way to stand a little bit out compared to the others. So
Mhm.
therefore we thought like that having a place where we could share a bit on the broader topics, where we could that could apply to folks targeting different roles would also help. And in some of them, you could deep dive more because this is what you would like to specialize in. But on the others, you could just get, some foundational background that can help you at least be able to have a conversation, or at least know what this is about, and then easily jump into deep dive whenever it becomes relevant, because we can't be experts in all of the topics since the space is so huge. But knowing a little bit about some topics and then having like more detailed knowledge about a few is what I feel is like a good golden balance. So that's, I hope, what we can kind of contribute with here, and of course get some guests as well that specialize in specific topics, based also on the feedback we hope we can get from the community going forward as well.
100%, 100%. Yeah, and that brings us to our first topic that we wanted to kind
Mm,
of discuss, which was how can you succeed in today's engineering world? Regardless of what job you're choosing. And I have my take on it. We oddly enough we didn't really talk about this, prior to the episode in terms of what both of our takes were. So I'm curious enough to see if it'll be the same or if it'll be a little bit different, or somewhere in between. But it's just so different now compared to you know when we got into it, however many years ago it was. I feel old every time I think about it. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot.
yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen was, like, I remember the golden rule always was update yourself every 2 to 5 years. right? 5 years was like kind of pushing it. But if you updated yourself every 4 years, where you got another cert, or you read another book, or you kind of saw what was happening in the world, you were good. But now it's, I want to say, every 3 to 6 months, you got to be really like on top of things.
Mm.
You know what?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there with that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I I th- I think it's like not even every 3 to 6 months. I feel like you need to just do it continuously. Follow along with the news, what's happening in the space, and I mean, we see how much more pressure it kind of ended up with all the advancements, all the hype around artificial intelligence, around machine learning. We also see that it's so much more content, so much more speed in terms of like many companies saying, okay, now we're gonna introduce uh, some AI capabilities in our products, and of course, it's a whole discussion in itself, like doing it where it makes sense and all, but it still results into the expectation that we will see going forward from
Mhm.
companies looking for engineers, that they also expect you to have some kind of knowledge about this domain, which was not a thing, that much of a thing, like for 10 years ago, right? And even I'm looking at some experiences also in the community and also in the jobs in the companies where I am have been working, and there have been colleagues there that have been in the space for like 15, 20, 25 years, and to some of them it is actually challenging to like switch that mindset, because that was not an expectation to like know about 100 of different things and all the time like try educating, learning yourself about more and more things, because many things have been static, and you kind of learned uh, deeply about how you would, for example, do software development, like with
Mhm.
C sharp, for example, and then you knew how to do it and you did it. But now there is so much more that is coming into picture, with, for example, okay, deploying it to public clouds, integrating some AI capabilities, you name it, and then suddenly you need to have to know how to do all these additional things, understanding how containers work, understanding how what public cloud services out there that your application would need to use, all these things. So it requires suddenly a lot more from you, and of course I have seen it being challenging for those who have not started in such a fast-paced reality
Right.
to actually convert the whole mindset. And I do believe that this will still be a thing going forward, that you would need to kind of be prepared to continuously learn and stay on top of things, and maybe not even like personally I would probably say keep yourself updated almost on a weekly basis,
Yeah. Yeah.
just a little bit. It's not like I don't mean like deep diving into
Mhm.
everything every week, but like just keeping an eye on
Yeah.
highlights that are happening, because it's happening so fast.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting. So one of the things that I do in the minimal free time that I give myself per week, I like cars a lot. So I'll go to, like, car shows and stuff, and I'll get into conversation, because you see a wide range of people, right? You see, middle-aged people, you see older folks, and you see younger folks, 17, 18-year olds, young adults, that always ask that are, I'm seeing this trend now where they're asking the question of, like, how can I be successful, right? And I always constantly hear well, I'm on Instagram, and this person saying they just did these three things and they were millionaires. And I'm like, nah, it's not the way that it works. But that's the world of instant gratification that we live in. And I get asked the question, like, what do you do? And I say, I own a tech company. Except that's the easiest way to explain what I do, is like, I own a tech company. And they're like, oh, like, I was thinking about getting into tech and programming, because it's easy to make six figures and blah blah blah. And it's true, right? Like I know a lot of people coming out of school for computer science that like they're starting at 100,000. Um, but I always tell people the same thing. If you don't like it, don't do it. Because if you jump into this just for the money, you're going to have a really, really crappy life, right? I'll just
Mm,
say it for what it is. If
mm,
you jump into it for the money and you're not in it because you enjoy it, and you just grinding away, because it's gonna feel like a grind if you don't enjoy it and if you're just in it for the money. So it's always
mm,
my advice to everybody at this point is if you don't really like it, go find something else, because to keep yourself updated, like you said, weekly, to deep dive every 3 to 6 months to like really get an understanding of what's happening in this world so you can be successful in the space. It takes a significant amount of time. Like this is not every 12 months I'm going to read for an hour and I'm going to be good. Um,
mm,
this is a effort that you have to put in to your career, which you know I mean, my mindset is like everybody should be doing that, right? But not everybody wants to do that. There are a lot of folks that want to do their 9 to 5 and go home, and that's their prerogative, and that's okay. But in this space, this is not the career to get into if that's what you want. What are
mm.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it would be challenging. Like if you don't have a motivation, if you don't
Mhm.
have interest, I think it would be really difficult to like make yourself stay on top of things and learn new things all the time. I think it will require a lot of like mental effort from you, and that would be like quite a quick path to burnout that can actually result into health challenges, health problems, and then no one benefits from that if
Mhm.
you are out and neither the company nor you get nor your family gets anything out of it, because then no one is happy. So you kind of need to think about if this is really what are your true goals here and
Mhm.
what you would like to do. I think like in most of the areas in tech, you would probably need to be prepared for having that motivation and learn continuously. Like I'm thinking maybe customer support or something like that could maybe require a little bit less,
Mhm.
because then you need to have a good knowledge of the products, but and you need to know some, maybe have some technical background depending on like which line of
Right.
support you are in. So it may be a bit different, but I also know that for many it can also be quite boring. So you need to like explore what are the areas there and think about it. Okay, um, is this something that really interests me, and am I prepared to like
Right.
continuously learn things? So
Right. Right.
so I agree with you that all in all,
Yeah.
that would require
Right.
to do it for something more than just money, of course.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point that you bring up, because there are particular positions that will require you to keep up to date less, right?
Mm,
So for example, right, like let's take your customer service example. Well, maybe your customer tech support for a particular product. And yeah, you have to keep up to date with that product, but it's a new feature here or a bug fix there or whatever, and then it's far more straightforward. But playing devil's advocate for a second, that's usually when we see folks like, and look, I'm not looking to offend anybody here. This is just general business acumen. A lot of the times that we see that is when people get laid off, right? So, layoffs happen for various reasons, whether it's we're in a financial dip, right? So recessions more or less happen every 10 to 12 years, give or take. It's if you're into personal finance, you'll know it's actually meant to happen. So when recessions occur, it's actually meant to stabilize our economy. It's literally by design. But when recessions happen, sometimes you'll see more layoffs. But the majority of layoffs is, and I don't, again, not trying to offend anybody here, but it's the what business, not me, what businesses would refer to as like the low hanging fruit, right? The people that have been in the same position for X amount of years and they want fresh blood. And right. And they'll use whatever excuse, the recession, business isn't doing well, blah, 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 to push people out and get new people in. Now, why does this occur? Well, you could assume that it could occur based on the fact that, look, if you've been a virtualization sysadmin for 20 years in the same company, your job hasn't changed much and you haven't had to update yourself, right? But this is what happens. Let's say you get laid off and then you're going to go and you're going to look for another job. You're going to have a hard time getting another job because you're not only are you so used to the way one business is ran, right? Because regardless of the technology, you walk into any business, it's always going to feel different based on culture, based on how things are implemented, based on verbiage that's used, right, and acronyms that are used, and like little things that are just so that make a job so drastically different. Getting yourself into those positions and kind of keeping yourself there, and not bouncing around and not keeping yourself up to date, even if you want to stay in the same job, keeping yourself up to date, having that home lab, whatever, that could actually lead to a layoff in the future, right? And we kind of see this all the time. What do you think about that? Again, I don't want to offend anybody by saying that. It's just that's just kind of how layoffs work, right? Like, and this is just general business stuff. That's unfortunately what happens, right? Because we don't really live in the world, and this is the thing, we don't live in the world anymore where somebody could get a job at 20 and retire at 65 in the same company. Like that was the whatever you want to call it, the American dream, right? It was like having a good stable career, having your home, having your family, working your 9 to 5, etc. And that's just not how it is anymore. Yeah, so
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
done ranting.
Yeah, no, I mean these are valid reflections, and again, we are also engineers. We also have jobs and have been in jobs, so like we are not those who want to offend anyone because we also know exactly what the consequences may be. And unfortunately, as you say, business is business, and we see a lot of motions, a lot of things going on right now, also with layoffs due to different reasons. And all those companies that are talking about us being a family, it's like,
Mm,
and then the layoffs happen independent of what words are being put. I guess my recommendation would also be to think about that in the end, for every corporation out there, it comes to business, it comes to income generation. If they are not profitable, they will go bankrupt. So,
mhm,
therefore, there will always be a risk
mhm,
for everyone in every position. What I have seen through the years, independent of companies telling if we're a family or whatever, we love every one of you working with us. In the end, we need to be prepared for the fact that everyone is unfortunately replaceable.
right,
This is just their reality. There is no one that is ideal that will never be replaced by a company.
right,
That is just how the world unfortunately works. And but that I'm looking like at it, if we are to try to give some advice, maybe from our personal
mm,
experiences as well. It's not just about the folks that you mentioned, Michael, that have been there like for many years maybe and have been just doing a single thing. What I have, for example, recently seen a lot happening, like we had some huge cases in Norway recently about consultancy companies giving contracts to those who are finishing their studies to join, and then like a month before or maybe even weeks before the start date, just canceling contract.
1,000%. Yep.
No projects right now, economical difficulties.
Right.
We don't have enough customers to give, not enough work. So
Mhm.
we don't have the possibility to
Mhm.
for you to join anymore. And then you can imagine about those folks who have been maybe saying no to other opportunities. And now they're finishing studies and they don't have a job to go to as they
Right.
thought.
Right.
So, like, this is also a real life situation. What do you do? So I think like maybe if we are to to try to give some advice, I think like it will be important to find ways in which you can adapt your qualifications to try to broaden your specialization so that you can be prepared to consider a set of positions, for example, out there, so
Mhm.
that you have a broader choice to choose from. Because we also need to remember like the American dream is one thing, but then it's with on the condition that you have ideal companies. But companies, most of the
Right.
companies are far from ideal. They also have toxic cultures,
Mhm.
all this working beyond hours. And, there is always some kind of trade off in every company. So, of course,
Mhm.
being able to broaden your landscape, being able to do something apart from like the little box that you
Mhm.
were focusing on, to try to showcase something you have been doing on your own, for
Mhm.
example, would help you stand out and show that you can be ready to take upon challenges, to step out of comfort zone. Like
Mhm.
personally, I've seen that this as a benefit.
Mhm.
In my jobs throughout the years, that when I was saying yes to new tasks, opportunities that have been outside my main role, I also saw benefit of it in the long
Mhm.
term, both in terms of my competence, but also in terms of feeling that freedom, that I am not sitting there dependent on others. I can hop into something, make it happen, and then see, hey, take a look, I fixed this and this. And you
Mhm.
get that good reaction. Oh, nice. She
Right.
hasn't asked about that, but that was fixed. That's a value there. So that's how you do it. And you to be able to do such things, you would need to be able to like adapt and find ways to broaden your landscape continuously.
Right. Yeah. So there is the there's the concept of always understanding that there will be some type of outcome, good and bad, right? Like I remember I was watching this one like Instagram reel or YouTube short or something, and it was a bunch of people on this round table. It was like Tom Hanks and Shia LaBeouf and or however you pronounce his name, and a bunch of other people, right? And Tom Hanks was essentially saying, and if everybody's watching, if you don't know Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump, right? Um, that's the. I mean, he's been in a gajillion other things, but that's I feel like that's most notable for people.
Mm.
He was essentially talking about like what people have to understand in life is, you know, when things are bad, this too shall pass. When you're at the lowest of the low, this too shall pass. But then he says, and when you're the happiest you've ever been in your life, this too shall pass. Like there's never a constant, right? So when you're doing something like taking a job role, what are you thinking in your head? You're thinking, huh, got a job. Cool, right? And then a month before it's supposed to start, it gets taken away.
Mm.
That's an outcome. You cannot control that, right? But what you can control is what you do afterwards and what you do before. So you have two choices. You can either sit around and say, boo hoo, poor me, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. Or you can say, all right, what do I got to do now? How do I get to the next point? How do I get to the next job? Right. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about before. We're going to see two types of people. We're going to see the people that they got a job and they're going to kick back and relax and kick their feet up and wait for their start date. Or they get a job, or maybe they don't have a job yet, and they say, all right, what else? Let me create a GitHub. Let me put up some example code. What else? Create a project, right? Even if it's something simple. Like, there's going to be the people that are going to kick their feet up, and there's going to be the people that want to keep going and pushing and seeing what else they can do. And look, there's a lot of talk about like not burning out. There's a lot of talk about, having time for yourself and all of this. And that's important. I'm not saying it's not important. But for example, right? Yesterday I closed my laptop at 9 p.m. That's not for everybody. Right? I'm not saying that is something that everybody has the ability to do. But what I'm saying is, some days when you have those long hours, it's because you're building something, right? You're getting something ready to push out there into the world. And that I'd argue that mindset is necessary in today's world to succeed in anything that you want to do. Like, you gotta want to go the extra mile, right? It's not just about getting the job and kicking your feet up. It's about, all right, I got the job, now what? What's the next thing? Or I didn't get the job. All right, now what? Right? It's all about just constantly progressing yourself and constantly moving forward. Because otherwise, yeah, I mean, look, if you don't do those things, I'm not saying, nobody's holding a gun to your head saying you have to do them, right? But if you don't do those things, what you have to understand is that there will be more so of an opportunity for things like layoffs to occur. There will be more opportunities for things to occur, like being out of date with tech and not being able to get another job. And look, I'm not saying that if you hustle 7 days a week, 13 hours a day, bad things aren't going to happen. They will, all right? It's life. It'll just be less frequent. That's my take.
Yeah, I think it comes basically down to proactivity, because since for a long time tech industry has been in many countries maybe experiencing shortage, at least in Europe until
Mhm.
recently, which we see is also changing. And at that point, it was you could relax a little bit, or you could
Mhm.
feel maybe more secure about that you will get a job and you will stay in that job because there is a shortage. But this has changed, unfortunately. But we could, like you say, we could be sad about it and give up, but no one benefits from that.
Mhm.
We could, but on the other side, we could use this as the motivation and find ways to be proactive. And we've seen many situations where people have been struggling to find a job, also in tech. And of course, it can come to a lot of factors. But I think the best you could do is find ways to keep that motivation and ways proactively find how you can improve. How can you get feedback on what's not working? Why am I not getting that job? Can I use my community? Can I use my network to get feedback on what I am presenting when I am applying for a job? Could I get feedback directly from those who declined my application? Could I reach out to someone outside my network, maybe even, or someone I know that I feel secure about, to ask them to advise on some additional things I could do that can
Mhm.
boost? Could I utilize some public services out there that also help with reviewing the applications or help with recommendations? Can I get into open source? Like, if I don't feel secure about creating anything myself, or
Mhm.
I don't want to like copy paste all the boring blueprint my cafe type of project, because it may not necessarily work or give much benefit, could I benefit to something out there that is in at scale, like in open source projects,
Mhm.
even from the CNCF landscape, or you name it. There are hundreds, if thousands of opportunities out there. Finding there are many opportunities that you may need to explore to strengthen your position, because the competition has also become much higher in the tech industry, and
Mhm.
the opportunities became a little bit fewer recently, like in the recent years, especially with the pandemics and now the geopolitical situation. So
Yep.
I guess the way I see it, it comes to uh, finding ways to be proactive and take actions on what you can do
Mhm.
to see that you are motivated, that you are prepared to
Yep.
constantly develop and bring value if you are hired, for example.
100%. Yep. And to your point before about, overall economy situations, yeah, I mean that's of course very, very real. One thing to keep in mind, especially right now, like if you're gonna start on this journey now, now is a great time to do it. If you're in the US, it's election year, right? Election year always means there's money being thrown around a bit more from an economical perspective. So if you're thinking about it now and you're like, I want to be able to make the leap this year or something, or do something different, now's the perfect time to like really start hustling, because you're going to have a couple of better opportunities to be able to push forward this year and hopefully beyond. So,
Mm.
what would be your, I don't know, top 2 to 3 things that everybody should think about when they're trying to succeed in their engineering role?
Mm. That's a tough one, yeah. Top 2 to 3 to succeed. I think, yeah, I think it comes down to what we discussed till now. I would say maybe one, the learning as a lifestyle is
Mhm.
something I would recommend to embrace. Find those 20 minutes, a half an hour every day to learn something, to read something, to try something out, test a new tool, a new framework, build something, contribute to an open source project, you name it. But
Mhm.
every day, a little bit contributes to a larger benefit you can gain over time. The second one is to be proactive, explore all the opportunities out there. Many community members are sharing also
Mhm.
resources to help others to find ways on how to contribute, how you can start contributing to open source. Many members can offer their like help in reviewing your
Mhm.
CV or whatever. Explore those opportunities, even though it seems scary. You may not necessarily ask publicly. You could send a DM to start with if you
Mhm.
feel secure to begin like that. But explore the opportunities you have at hand to gain feedback, which will help you improve and stand more out. And I think the third, it was top two. Top three. Do I have a top three? Yeah, yeah. Well, the third one, the last one, that was something I wanted to ask your thoughts on, Michael. Also, like with all the advancements of the AI and machine learning, and what we hear about companies like saying now we're gonna go AI first, and then there are all these articles out there like one company replaced their developers with this AI based software
Mhm.
engineer. um, like what do you think would engineers need with this development to stand out? So for me, like the third topic is the third point is related to that. Like then there is higher focus on like the emotional piece, the soft skills piece. How can
Mhm.
you get better as a software engineer also at communicating with like product managers, your customers, your users? How can you, with your soft skills, also contribute to making better products? There will be more focus on that when kind of more
Mhm.
AI will get integrated. So develop your communication and soft skills, and which should help you also create better connections
Mhm.
once you are hired, especially because that would be also valuable to be a part of, to truly be a part of the company and feel like have a sense of belonging as well. So that would be my top three.
Yeah.
So what about you, and what are your thoughts on my last
Yeah.
point there as well?
So I think with AI, the biggest thing that, and this is particularly generative AI, right? Because for everybody listening, there's a big difference between your standard AI that's being trained based on models, right, that are being learned from machine learning, et cetera, right? And there's this Gen AI piece for LLMs or large language models. When automation started to really become a thing, uh, you know, 2014, 2015, give or take, there was a significant amount of fear from engineers. There were so many articles about how automation was going to take engineering jobs and blah blah blah, um, and it arguably created more. Based off of history, I could see the same thing happening because for anybody that's really dove into LLMs and the whole Gen AI thing right now, it's kind of sucks, right? Like when you ask a question to these chat bots and they just kind of make up answers. Um, it's not as sophisticated as we think. For whoever that company was that replaced all their developers with the AI developer, I'm assuming that company is either tanking right now or they're looking to bring back their developers, because look, you what everybody has to understand is when it comes to AI, there isn't the critical thinking piece just yet, right? You're essentially taking the logical part of your brain and turning it into a system. That's what the gist of AI is. You're training it much like a brain. Like nobody comes out of the womb knowing Python, right? You're training yourself to understand that. And it's the same thing with AI. But the thing with AI is that it's being trained with logical data, right? It's not being trained in this critical thinking, troubleshooting piece, etc. It can give ideas based on that, but the human factor isn't there yet. Now, will it be there? Maybe. I don't know. But that piece certainly isn't there yet. So it's not a I don't think it's as progressed as a lot of people are assuming, is what I'm saying. And I think that because of that, there's going to be a lot of jobs that come out of it, and there's going to be a lot of need for people that come out of it. And if there's not, the good news is we'll all be all out of jobs, so we can all complain and all that together. Um, Now, in terms of my top three, what I would say is number one, like you said, continuous learning. Number two, understand the progression paths necessary to be successful in life as a whole. And number three, and this is the one that everybody's gonna hate the most because there's so much heat around the hustle culture, but you gotta hustle. Look, you gotta hustle. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care that you're reading this stuff or you're watching these videos where people are like, I work 3 hours a day and I'm a millionaire. No, it's unrealistic. I don't care what these people are feeding you. You will have days, especially in the beginning of your career, you will have days where you are pushing 12, 13-hour days. If you want to be successful in your career. If you don't want to be successful in your career and you want to coast and eventually have the issues of getting laid off and have the issues of not being up to date, etc., do you have to do that? No. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the ride. There's going to come a point where you're not going to enjoy it anymore. But if you don't want to, if you want to decrease the outcome of that being your situation, you're going to have to put time into hustle, right? If you're even if you're an experienced engineer, if you're working your 9 to 5, understand you're going to dedicate, 30 minutes to an hour a day to push forward, right? And understand that on the weekends, you're going to be dedicating time to read and to learn. And the thing about that is you just have to be creative with your time, right? So anywhere that I go, I bring my iPad. If I'm sitting at the doctor's office and I'm sitting in the waiting room for, I don't care if it's 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 20 minutes, I open up my iPad and I read. If I'm on the treadmill, I primarily do power walking because back issues can't really run all that well. I bring my iPad and I'm reading on the treadmill. Between sets, when I'm lifting, right, I have, 45 seconds to a minute between sets. I'll read. Be creative with how you're consuming information, right? And there's a lot of people that will argue the idea, well, I don't have time. Anybody that ever told me they didn't have time, I break down hours and minutes throughout their day, and they realize, oh, I have like 5 extra hours throughout the day, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Don't scroll on your phone. use that time wisely, because look, there's you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable in the idea of life isn't, meant to be easy, right? Life isn't meant to just allow you to coast, especially in today's world. You got to have the ability to take yourself to the next level. And the only way to take yourself to the next level is by uh, doing things that everybody else isn't, you know? And that's my biggest advice. My biggest advice is, number one, continuously learn. Number two, use your time wisely. Number three, hustle. You gotta hustle.
Mm.
Yeah.
That was a deep motivational TED talk. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess maybe just to add to that, or maybe to comfort, like I don't think that your message is like that you must do it 24/7. You should kind of course, also adjust it a little bit to your everyday and just evaluate where do you have that extra free time for learning, and just realize why you're doing it. So you, like, it doesn't help if you again pressure yourself to doing it when you hate everything about the pressure of learning. Like, if you
Mhm.
are motivated and if you know that you're doing it because you're also enjoying it, that will come naturally, that you start
Right.
learning continuously. And of course, it's also important to balance it a little bit with also breathing in between. So I don't think
Mhm.
like your message was no life work
Right.
life balance here, just study.
Right.
That's also not the message here, but that's like understanding that in this world, to be able to get somewhere as an engineer, you would need to
Mhm.
find all those ways to continuously learn and do new things, basically.
Yes, agreed. Look, I'm not telling everybody that, from the time you're 20 years old to the time you're 65 years old, don't have any fun. That's not the message here. But what I will tell you is there will be points in your life that you will have to hustle like that. Like I think everybody in some way, shape, or form should take a month, every once in a while, right? Maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Take a month where like everything is shut out except your goal and what you're focusing on, right? Turn yourself off from the world and really
Mm,
just push and focus on what you want, right? Like you will have those times where you're just hustling for a long time to get yourself to where you want to be. And in that time frame, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, right? Where you're not doing the vacation thing, you're not going out with your friends, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. You're really just pushing forward. Now, will that be 60 years straight? No, of course not. Like If you like sports, you're going to go watch a sports game. If you like to go on vacation, you're going to go on vacation. If you enjoy, like me, like my outlet is cars, I go to car shows. But there are also times like I'm kind of in that period right now where like I know for the next week or two, I'm going to be cranking it out. Like, it's going to be a hustle. Like, I'm leaving my house like for the essentials. But other than that, I'm not going to car shows. I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm really just, I need to push right now to get myself to a particular level that I need to be at. Right. And that's going to be 12, 13-hour days. And it's going to be a constant push for me for the next couple of weeks. But it's not forever. Number one. Number two, I like it.
It's an
I,
important piece here. Yeah.
yeah, like I like getting myself to the next level. I like being able to push myself, and not a lot of people like it. A lot of people are happy with kicking their feet up at the end of the day, but for me, that's just not my mindset. I need to constantly push forward, but again, that's I know like at some point I'm gonna have another vacation, right? It's not like my whole life's over, and that's the biggest thing. Like, you just got to remember there are points in your life where it could, like I said, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, where you're just, the only thing on your mind is, how do I get to the next level? And that's what separates people in the world, right? In my opinion. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that was a positive motivation, we hope. A positive. If you needed a kick in your back or a sign
Right.
on what is the next step, or how do you go from here, we can be that kick you may have needed. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we're. Well, what do you think? Are we good to wrap up here for the first episode?
Yeah.
That was a heavy first episode. So
That was a long one as well. I mean, that's like, I feel like a topic we can talk a lot about, but that's also an important topic, right? It's a challenging, but at the same time exciting time we are living in, and
mm,
if this can help someone to get that motivation you have been looking for, maybe it can be that, but it's also based like on our experience, so it's not like coming from randomly out of nothing. So
yeah,
yeah, I think we ended up having a good discussion on this. So hope that it can help some of the listeners here.
absolutely. I think it definitely will, and we're excited to hear everybody's feedback. So definitely let us know
Totally.
what you think. Cool.
And also let us know if there are topics that you would like us to talk about, or guests we should get onto our podcast going forward. All the feedback is always welcome.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, everyone.